Rising family, welcome in. Take a deep breath. Let your spirit settle and soften into this message. This is a collective reading rooted in rising. Collective message once again. From survival to Empress energy. This is our Mother's Day message. It doesn't mean you have to be a mother for the message. It's just a Mother's Day message. However you connect to that or not. All right. So as we begin, you will be able to see the cards on the screen during this introductory portion. So just take a moment to connect with them, feel into them, and let your intuition meet them before we move forward together. The tarot deck used today is the Unfolding Path Tarot deck. It uses the same standard meanings of a traditional deck. The artwork on it is just absolutely beautiful. So that'll be the only difference. I want you to know, though, before we get started, is I want you to take what resonates, of course. I want you to leave what does not. So, not everything is for everybody. If it doesn't connect to you, it doesn't connect. But it doesn't mean we can't take pieces of it for just wisdom purposes, all right? So when I speak of masculine and feminine, I'm not speaking of gender. I'm speaking of energies. An example of a card we have in our deck today, the Empress. It represents a very highly feminine card. It's like the pinnacle of femininity. But it doesn't mean that those attributes described by that card alone is talking about a female, right? Depends on context, how it's being used, questions that are being answered through that card, and the topic, right? So anyway, as I said, we're using the Unfolded Path Tarot deck, standard traditional meanings. So our cups will speak to our emotions in connection and things like that, right? Swords to thoughts and truth, right? So your mental, your mind, thoughts, truth, communication, right? Cutting through things, usually very quickly, right? Discernment. And then our wands are our passion, purpose, drive, what motivates us, what gets us going, creativity, right? Pentacles, stability, that's our earth energy. That's, physical things, the tangible, what you build in the physical, the tangible, finances, depending on what questions you're answering, right? And things like that. So very stable, grounded earth energy, right? Wands is fire, swords is air, cups is water. I didn't go over that. All right. We also are going to weave in some oracle decks. We use the Faces of Oshun Oracle. We pulled one card from that deck. All right. And the Love Your Inner Goddess Oracle. We use that deck. We have 3 cards from that deck. So on the bottom row, the last 3 are from that deck. And the first card is Oshun, the goddess of Oshun, for those who are already familiar with that. Oshun, some say, they have different pronunciations depending on dialect and where you're from and things like that. Oshun of Mother's Milk, that's from our Faces of Oshun Oracle deck, all right? So, Spirit is very clear about what this message is saying, rooted in rising. This is about the journey from holding everything together in survival mode to finally stepping into a life you are supported, a life where you're seen, and a life where you're poured into. This is about who you had to become to get here, okay? And just because we're talking about from survival to Empress energy doesn't mean, again, we're just talking about only, females here, okay? All right, well, Rooted in Rising, let's get into the message. All right, Rooted in Rising, I am so excited for this message today. I really wanted to do a Mother's Day message, not one that was just geared towards mother, almost like church, the Mother's Day message. It was just a Mother's Day message. For one, I'm going to be totally honest with you, Rooted in Rising. I completely forgot that it was even Mother's Day, and I am a mother, yes, but I honestly forgot about it. Then when I was remembered, it was like, okay, we'll do a message on Mother's Day. Not necessarily geared towards mothers, but one that is kind of focused on the feminine energy. And, of course, you put yourself wherever you put that. It doesn't mean if you are a masculine energy that you cannot listen and take part in the message or learn or gain something, or you may feel even that it resonates with you as well. So I knew that I felt compelled to really pull tarot today. I wasn't really sure why, and then it kind of clicked. Oh, it's Mother's Day. I just remembered. So yeah, I love the smoke. I got the incense going, and it's it's really going really hard because the smoke is like really, really strong, but I love it. It's a beautiful aroma. I have to give additional disclaimers. You may feel that here dangling and snoring. That is Marco the dog, living his best life right here, sleep, bundled up in this blanket of mine. And then of course he likes to move around depending on, whatever he's got going on in his mind. But let's begin. Oh yes, barefaced energy. Yes, you do see my actual face. I know some people get so touchy about coming on camera without the whole works. And I wanted to, but I just didn't feel like it today, honestly. And so you will see the real me today. All right, you see the real me every day anyway. Makeup is just makeup. Anyway, 8 of Swords. 8 of Swords is how we kick this whole thing off, right? And I want you to really feel this energy rooted and rising, because Spirit is not brushing past it. We know seasoned tarot users, readers, they know what the 8 of Swords signifies. And even you saw in the deck, you saw, the 8 swords, the person kind of wrapped up in it. And we know swords is our mental, our mind energy. So it's like feeling trapped in the mind. So the 8 of Swords is that space where you felt restricted. Remember, it has to do with your mind, mental, your thoughts, because it's the sword. So this is where your thoughts, your environment, or even your role made you feel like you didn't have the freedom to move the way your spirit wanted to move, hence the trap. But it was a mental trap. Again, the 8 swords around the person in the card, no matter usually what deck you use, you will see something represented like that, depending on the artwork. And remember, the swords are there. They can free you at any moment, but you are wrapped up in the mind, and you could free yourself with the swords around you, but you haven't, okay? So it's having the ability to be free, in a sense. Like the ability is there, but at the same time, you feel trapped. If that makes sense. I hope it does to you, right? So that's Spirit acknowledging that. It's a gentle acknowledgement. All right, where you feel like you didn't have the freedom to move the way your spirit wanted to move. All right. Now, there was a time, or maybe a time, rooted and rising, where you felt like you had to stay in something longer than you should have, right? Where you felt like you had to figure things out on your own quietly without falling apart, right? And that can go in so many different directions, right? Finances is a big one, where you got to figure out how to make ends meet, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck or robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Or even if you have a more sound financial life, it doesn't mean that you still aren't trying to figure things out. This is definitely a different day and age, right? Yeah, and even just situation, circumstance, if you are just, if you're just like the primary person in the household taking care of everything, it may feel like a mental trap. You know what I mean? You're doing all the cleaning, the cooking, the kids, if you have kids, the everything, the working. And so you may feel like, it's something a circular thing that you just can't get out of, in a sense, but it's a mental or mind thing. So you feel mentally trapped in it. But anyway, this would have been a time that you felt maybe that you had to stay in something longer than you should have, okay? For many of you, this may this does tie into your feminine energy. Many, not all, right? Feeling like you had to carry, again, those heavy loads, carrying the weight of nurturing the home, whether that is children or no children. You still nurture the home. If you have a counterpart, you are so feeling like you had to still nurture the home and carry the home in that sense. fix or hold things together even when it was heavy, So it could be a multitude of things, even all those things at one time, all right? Not because you didn't know better, but because you cared, all right? So this can feel like staying in situationships that felt mentally or emotionally limiting, all right? Again, carrying responsibilities that maybe weren't fully yours. Maybe you, again, carried all of the loads. Maybe you carried all the finances. Maybe you carried the finances and the emotional support. You just did it all, Or in feeling maybe that you had to endure instead of freely choose. Or maybe, feeling like you didn't have a voice to voice, hey, I'm not fulfilled in this way, and I just have to endure, if that makes sense. Sometimes it's not a financial burden. It's not a, burden where I have to do everything, just not supported in an area and feeling like you have to endure it. You don't feel free to voice. Or if you're free to voice, you don't feel like it matters. So you just have to kind of push through, especially if you're doing it on your own and not because you have somebody with you that's not helping you. Sometimes you're just on your own, me, single parent. So literally everything is me. All of it, all right? There's no other person. You got the finances, the nurturing, the emotional care, the running here, the running there, the taking care of you, the doctor's appointments, the sick, the child acting up. You got it all. So you may feel it's just circular, all those things. It's a mental trap. There's no way out. This is just what it is. I have no other choice but to deal with it, whether you're partnered or not. Okay, whether you have somebody with you or not, you may feel restricted in some way. That's what the Eight of Swords is. It's a mental restriction in some way, where there is a way out, but it doesn't feel like it while you're in it. You don't see a way out. The swords are there to free you, but you don't see the swords. Even you're wrapped up, so even your eyes are covered. You don't see a way out. All right. Then we move on to the Two of Pentacles, and even in that space, again, even in the space of feeling like there's no other way to go. There's no way out of whatever this is, whatever it looks like for you. We have the Two of Pentacles, which most, again, people know that you will see even on the deck we use. It's the juggle. The person is juggling two pentacles or two coins, or it's a juggling of things, right? So even in that space, you kept moving. It shows that even though you felt mentally trapped by either finances, emotional things, or whatever, even though Swords is not an emotional card, it's more mental. You may have emotions behind the thing that causes the mental trap, okay? Where you don't feel emotionally supported, or you are responsible for supporting everybody emotionally. You are responsible for supporting everybody in every way, so it causes the mental trap, all right? But it does show in Two of Pentacles that even in the trap, you kept moving. You didn't allow it to stop you. You just juggled, right? You kept on balancing, adjusting, managing, right? So the Two of Pentacles is that quiet resilience, that part of you that kept everything afloat when life felt uncertain, when you didn't know how you were going to make it, when you didn't know, when you were robbing Peter to pay Paul, but you didn't know if Peter even had anything to rob. Okay? You just kept it moving, right? You just found a way. You either dealt with it, worked it out, found a way, skirted around it, maneuvered around it, all right? Outwitted it. You did something. You kept moving. It didn't stop. It didn't mean that the mental trap feels gone to you. You still are moving through it. All right. And so Spirit is wrapping this up in compassion, right? You did what needed to be done at the time. Or for some of you, again, the message is things are unfolding, right? You did what you needed to do at the time, or you're doing what you need to do, in order to stay afloat, to survive, period. All right. Whatever that looks like. All right. You learned how to hold yourself steady. Pentacles is still a card of stability, even though the Two of Pentacles is about balancing and juggling. It still is a stability card. That's why it's saying you managed to keep it moving, even though you had all these pieces moving. You juggled it, but you kept it moving. you kept it stable somehow in the juggling, if that makes sense. All right, so you learned how to hold yourself steady even when nothing around you felt stable. So this can look or feel like managing responsibilities while dealing with internal pressure, because we have the mental trap, the mind trap, and the Eight of Swords, but you still are in Two of Pentacles where you're just doing what you got to do. You're making it work, right? Adapting to constant changes, all right? Learning resilience through lived experience, all right? You're tough, right? Not tough and no one can say anything to you, or you're combative. You're just tough and you don't fall apart when when circumstances arise. You don't fall apart, all right, because you've been there, done that, dealt with it, right? Okay. So we move on to the Nine of Pentacles, right? This is the shift. This is beautiful, right? So then we have the Nine of Pentacles. I have to make it clear because we didn't pull that in this deck, but sometimes it can sound like the Knight of Pentacles when we're saying nine and interchangeable. But this is the Nine of Pentacles, right? Again, that's our earth energy, our finance energy, our stability energy, our grounded energy, our finances. I don't know if I said that already, but you're talking about that. We have the Pentacles, right? So this is your shift. This is where you come back to you, right? You come back to yourself. The Nine of Pentacles is that grounded, quiet moment where you look around and you realize, I built this version of me. All right, there's independence. All right, I was about to say, seasoned tarot users know that this is a card of independence, right? There's independence here, but it doesn't feel lonely. It feels earned. It feels peaceful. All right, it's like moving from the juggling to being stable and being independent. All right, and even though Pentacles speaks of being stable, this card is more like that. Being independent is just stability as a whole. All right, as a whole. So we pair the Oracle card from the Inner Goddess Oracle card. It had, the first one we had was Lion-Hearted or Lioness, right? So Spirit is affirming something deeper about your feminine energy here, right? Again, just because you're a male doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to you, all right? Because a card like Empress, Queen of Cups or something like that, the attributes of that card can go either way. It doesn't mean you don't have those attributes. And that's what we look at in tarot. Tarot's not saying this is a man, this is a woman. A lot of times we're taking the attributes of the card, all right? Queen of Swords can be very discerning, direct. Well, and that's still a feminine energy. The card is, but you can be a man and be discerning and direct, right? Directing communication, directing boundaries, cutting through nonsense, so that's just an example. Okay, anyway, so with the Lion-Hearted or Lioness Oracle card, Spirit is affirming something deeper about your feminine energy here. The Lioness energy is not like loud strength, just for the sake of being loud, all right? It's protective strength, right? Resilient strength, graceful strength, all right? It's a kind of feminine power that survives storms. Hence that Two of Pentacles, you were able to move through while juggling, all right? You were able to be stable in juggling. You were finding stability by, okay, this here, that here. We've got to put our time here, this one, this. You learn how to maneuver through it, right? It's the kind of feminine power that survives storms, protects what it loves, and still remains soft enough to nurture after everything it has endured, okay? I'm gonna take a sip of this. My throat is dry. I like it. I don't know, I just love it. It brings me joy. Like, I don't know, coffee and tea. I like milk tea, I don't know, it makes me, I don't know. Anyway, so Spirit is saying you didn't just get through it, rooted and rising. You grew into something strong, steady and self-assured. It's a beautiful card. It's a beautiful card to tie into the Nine of Pentacles, and it's beautiful. It's an acknowledgement of what you've been through. You may be going through it now because this may be unfolding, but it's also just a revelation of kind of what you can look forward to, going into next after the Eight of Swords and the juggling. The juggling. And we have the Nine of Pentacles, which is a very independent card. So it's saying you won't have that need to juggle in the way that you had to juggle before. It doesn't mean that you are going stagnant and you know what I mean? And just being still and not doing anything. It's just a different kind of juggling. A juggling that doesn't involve a mental strain or mental trap, if that makes sense. You're juggling your time here and your time there, nurturing the home, nurturing the children. You know what I mean? Schedules, your work schedules, whatever else you need to juggle. But it's saying, since it's a card of stability, the mental trap is not there. So more than enough in finances, so you don't juggle finances. You're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, to living paycheck to paycheck. You're stable in that area, all right? Stable in your emotions, stable in every other area, which is bringing the independence version, which the Nine of Pentacles really stands for. That's what's making you independent. Now, I don't know. Not for those who want divine partnership. You know how, the old saying, I don't need no man for nothing. Independent. I-N-D-E. Need no man. Independent. We're not saying that kind of independent. We're just talking about being stable, okay? Rooted in rising. Because, rooted in rising is focused on divine connections. So we're not talking about being independent where I don't need nobody. Just me, myself, and I is all I got. So Beyonce, all I got in the end is what I found out. No, rooted in rising. You need community. Whether you don't want a divine connection as far as romance, you want divine connections as far as community. We need people, all right? You need people around you, all right? Okay, take that as my opinion. So you don't be like, well, she said. Can't do life alone, rooted in rising, okay? But anyway, so, again, the Lioness, Lion-Hearted Oracle deck, which is paired with that Nine of Pentacles, all right, is, again, protective strength, resilience, graceful strength, right? Feminine power that has survived storms or is surviving, protects what it loves, and still remains soft enough to endure after everything it is gone through. Everything's endured, okay? Highly protective, highly nurturing, but again, you got to look at mama bears and the actual lioness, like this card is saying, they will fiercely protect those cubs, right? So you protect what you love, all right? That includes the divine counterpart. There's plenty of women there. I'm gonna go to bat for my man. Women can be very fierce, okay? All right. So Spirit is just saying, again, you didn't get through it. You grew into someone strong, steady, and self-assured, rooted and rising. It's a beautiful, those two cards pair very well together. So what this can feel like is, again, feeling secure within you. The mental trap is gone, okay? In this stage here. Recognizing your independence and your growth. Not the independence, I don't need anybody, but overall stability in your emotions, in your mind, in your finances, in your life. Everything's stable, all right? There's peace all around you so you can be independent, or as in stable all the way around and independent. All right, standing in your power without needing validation, that too. All right, then we move on to the Page of Wands, right? From that grounded place, because it's really about groundedness, all right? Not kicking everybody to the curb and unfriending everybody. We're not doing that, okay? You need people, good, sound people, aligned people, right? Whether they're family or not, around you, but you still need a community, right? So Page of Wands is where we move from that place, from that grounded energy, in your spirit, begins to open again. Remember, our wands is that fire energy, which can represent passion, but it's our drive, it's our creative energy. You know, it's like a spark because we're in page energy. Page is like the young or immature stage. It's like the beginning stage of something, the very baby stage. So you have that spark again after that Nine of Pentacles kind of independent energy, right? So the Page of Wands feels like curiosity returning, right? Like excitement gently rising back up for you, rooted and rising. And even maybe your creative ideas, maybe because you were always in the mental trap and the juggling and I gotta get here, I gotta do this is due, that's due. This one's acting a fool, this one's over here, you know, needing to be over here at this time. This one's got a doctor's appointment. You know, you got all these things going on where your creative energy, no matter what that looks like, is on hold. There's no time for you to think of anything that you like. You have no time to feel, no time to cry, no time to be sad, no time to be angry. You have no time for you in that energy, all right? You may feel a whole lot, but what you feel doesn't matter. That's part of the mental trap because you're so doggone busy. There's no time for nothing. So Page of Wands is like a return to you. It's like that spark of creativity igniting in you again, like, oh, I could do this again, all right? So your spirit begins to open up again. The Page of Wands feels like curiosity returning, like excitement.
Just keep swimming.
That's my alarm to tell my child you need to go to bed, right? So anyway, that's like excitement rising back up again. And no, I'm not going to edit it out. We know what the alarms sound like, right? So it's that quiet feeling of there's more for me now. Again, like before, you didn't have time to cry. You felt like crying, or maybe you did, but you you got 0.2 seconds to cry and get it together. No crying, no time. Work is due, right? Anyway, there's more for me now, and this time you're open to it. So this can again feel like feeling inspired once again about what's next. You have hope for what's next, right? Again, being open to new possibilities, reconnecting with your inner spark, your desires, you know, the things that you wanted to do, the things that you had to put on hold because again, you had to juggle, right? You had to juggle. And so now that you're in independence, that Nine of Pentacles energy, you can rest, you can cry, you can have emotions, you can feel, and most of all, right, the creative fire has room to spark the page and then grow, right? And so you can put those things that you put on the back burner forward again, whatever that looks like for you, all right? You might have had some business ideas that you couldn't really act on because, my gosh, you've got 50 things going at one time, all these different responsibilities, your own internal emotions and mental traps. And you just couldn't do it, all right? You just couldn't do it. Or you just, again, everybody else's needs comes before yours. So you don't matter or you don't feel like you matter or you just don't have time to matter, all right? So we move on now that we have the page. We went from the page and guess where we're jumping to? Dun, 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 dun. The Queen of Wands, right? So we step into this energy because the page was that creative spark, igniting again that passion, that drive, that motivation, that energy we needed sparking. And that was the beginning of it in the page stage. And now we've moved on to the Queen. We moved up to the Queen, right? And you step into that energy. So this is no longer the version of you that questions themselves, right? This is you, present, confident, grounded in your own power. You see how this is why we don't say that this is a man or a woman because, you know, that's the meaning of the card itself. So men can also be present, confident, grounded in your power, right? Just trying to get you to understand that contrast when we talk about energies and not just gender, okay? But anyway, this is you, present, confident, grounded in your own power, rooted and rising. There's warmth in you. Of course there is, because wands is fire, right? But there is a strong sense of self, a knowing, confidence, right? Our fire energy is very confident because it's very, here I am, right? You know, like a fire, it's raging. It's like, here I am, you will see me, you will notice me. So that's why it's like our spark, our passion, all right, our motivation. It's in, I don't want to say it's in your face, but it can be very in your face. Right? So there's warmth in you, yes, but there's a strong sense of self, a knowing. You know, a fire is confident, it doesn't back down. You have to kind of tame that so it doesn't, consume everything, right? It's a knowing of who you are. You don't shrink, all right? We pair that with the Magdalene oracle card, right? From the Knowing Your Inner Goddess oracle deck. You are stronger than you think, right? Magdalene, you are stronger than you think. So Spirit is bringing forward an energy of sacred feminine resilience, right? Magdalene carries the energy of the woman who has been misunderstood, right? Tested, emotionally stretched, and still remain deeply connected to her spirit and to her heart, right? So this is a feminine strength that does not lose its softness while becoming powerful. That seems to be throughout the message. It's like you have a very, I don't want to say dominant, but because it's very strong, right? It's very strong, but it's still very soft, all right? It's still very feminine, all right? And so Spirit is saying that everything you went through revealed your strength, rooted in rising. It didn't take it away from it. It built you, because again, I have said it time and time again, rooted in rising, you are a group, a group that wants more, but also can grow and learn. You take situations that are even unfavorable and you learn and you grow. All right. You're not a group of people where you don't learn from anything or no one can tell you anything. Even advice that stung, like, oh, that was harsh, or even advice you might have maybe pushed back on, you are a group that can go quietly and say, I did not like what they said, but they were right. All right. And you can grow from that. And that's what you usually tend to do, rooted in rising. You're not a group that just wants to stay stagnant and say, I'm right, you're wrong. And that's just what it is. Even if it's later, you can still recognize, where you were wrong and learn from it. So everything you went through revealed your strength. It didn't take away from it, because you have the ability to learn, adapt, and change, and learn from what did work and what did not work. All right. That's how you were able to juggle. All right. But anyway, so this could feel like showing up fully for yourself, rooted in rising, carrying confidence without needing to prove it, allowing your presence to be felt. All right. You carry confidence. You don't need people's validation, right? You are who you are. I don't have to prove to you who I am. You can see it. All right. And if you don't, rooted in rising, you're the group that says, well, that's your personal problem. I am who I am. All right, then you move on to the Queen of Swords. All right, talked about this a bit earlier. All right. So alongside that confidence comes clarity. Our swords, our air energy cuts through nonsense. It's discerning. To discern, right, it means that you can see things clearly. You're cutting through the nonsense, or you're dealing someone who's just I'm just saying, you got some people who like to manipulate with tears, and you're just like, you full of nonsense. All right. You got people like, oh my God, she's crying. And you're just like, she full of shit. And I'm just going to say it just like how I would say it. I may not say it out loud, but all right. You know what? What's a stereotype about Virgos? My face already said what I thought. Okay. I ain't say it out loud, but my face said like, and you are not going to see me comfort nonsense. I'm like, no, honey, she's playing you. You could clearly see that she full of shit. There's nothing wrong with her. But anyway, that's just an example. Discerning. Queen of Swords energy, right? So along with that confidence, that Queen of Wands, confidence, knowing who you are, all right? And coming across as being very secure in yourself. You pair it with the Queen of Swords. Not really pair, but alongside it, right? It comes clarity. You see things differently now. You understand what aligns, discernment, what doesn't, what you will accept, what you won't. And you are very clear on it. Emotions are not in the sword energy. It's not. It is very black and white. It is very what did Nene Leakes say? I said what I said. I said, you're not going to get me to apologize. I said what I said. I meant it. It is very black and white, cutthroat. All right. So you understand what aligns, what doesn't, what you will accept, and what you won't. You are in that energy, or that's coming for you. All right. And we pair that with the medicine woman card from, again, your inner goddess oracle card or oracle deck. All right. So Spirit is speaking about healing wisdom. All right. The kind of wisdom that comes from experience, intuition, observation. All right. Queen of Swords is very observant. All right. And survival. Okay. So this is the energy of a woman who learned how to heal herself, guide herself, and trust the knowledge that her spirit gained through lived experience. All right. And Spirit is honoring your clarity, or honoring that your clarity came from experience, from lessons that you had to live through. All right. And now you trust what you know. Hence, Queen of Wands from before. That's the inner knowing. I know who I am. So I present myself in full confidence. And if you see something you don't like, well, I'm not apologizing for being me. I'm not going to shriek myself because it makes you uncomfortable. Let's put it that way. You're in that energy. So we know Spirit is just honoring that your clarity came from experience, right? And the lessons that you had to live through. All right. So now you trust what you know. Again, this feels like, or could feel like for you, setting boundaries without guilt. I said what I said. All right. I said, do not show up to my door unannounced. That's what I said. You will stand outside of it. I will not let you in. And you can escort yourself wherever you choose. Like the song said, closing time. Remember that old song? But you don't gotta go home, but you can stay here. Just saying. So I said what I said. All right, these are the boundaries. Not tolerating it, not going back on it. You cross the line and boom, done. All right, making decisions that's rooted in truth, because Swords is a truth energy. All right, you cutting through nonsense. All right, and you're discerning truth. All right, you cut through the BS. You hurt my feelings. You're like, no, I'm not. You're not gonna manipulate me with your emotions. You are just playing games. I'm not doing it. All right. So anyway, trusting your inner wisdom. All right. Trusting your inner wisdom. That's that heightened discernment. All right. All right. We'll move on to the lovers. All right. To the lovers. All right. So now we come into alignment. You know, lovers is lovers, but it's about an aligned choice, right? So it's not about just connection, you know, or just romantic connection. It's about choice. So you are now rooted and rising, choosing differently, which we know you are because you're in Queen of Swords energy. That's a I'm not playing with you energy. So you're choosing differently, all right? Not from old wounds. You know how you can be like, you hurt me, so I'm just gonna cut everybody off. So it's not coming from a wounded place. It's not coming from fear, all right? Again, Queen of Swords is discerning, but it's from who you become. You are no longer what you were, who you were. So a lot of times when you change or you grow upward, it comes, you know, the discernment and your choices and things that you do, say, move, definitely change naturally. It's not something forced, or I'm not doing this with, I don't want to say intention or on purpose. I'm naturally choosing better and wiser because I'm not who I was before. So before I would, look, before I'll tell myself a little bit, like before I would have stayed up all night. All right, clubbing all night. And just trying to hold on for an hour of sleep. And now I'll be at home in bed like I'm supposed to. Actually, you won't even see me in the club. You may go out every now and again, but you won't see that. I've been there, done it. Okay, we're past that phase, you know. So you aren't who you were before. You're not gonna do the same things, make the same choices. You naturally are doing more aligned choices. All right, stable energy is what you're in. All right. You're choosing differently now. Again, not from pains and wounds where you're making bitter choices that, it's just rooted in bitterness and fear. It's just in discernment and truth. I'm just not going to do with that. That's just not something I'm going to do. I am not that person anymore, and I'm not going to tolerate that anyway. I shouldn't have tolerated then. As our beginning said, the Eight of Swords. So you might have stayed longer or tolerated more than what you should have, bringing on those mental traps. I'm not dealing with any of that. All right. I said what I said. I drew the line. So we're past that. All right. We're past all of those things. All right. But again, so lovers is not just about connection. Emotional connections can be, but not just about it. It is more about choices and more specifically aligned choices. You're choosing differently from a good wholesome place, a truthful place, a discerning place. All right. So this is where your life begins to reflect your growth. Because of the aligned choices you're making, naturally, what comes out of it is more fruitful things, right? So this could feel like choosing relationships that align with your growth. All right, your divine connection, obviously, and then your friendship circles, community circles, or whatever types of relationship. There's business connections, obviously, networkings, even, for those that go to church or whatever you call wherever you go to, whatever you affiliate with, they're all aligned and connected to your growth. All right, experiencing mutual balanced connections and only aligning yourself with those kinds of connections once again, and cutting loose all of the nonsense and anything that looks like manipulation or anything that you're discerning not to be real or true or not what it is. Discernment is almost, it's like following your intuition. Even if a person has not displayed something to you that would signify that they are not trustworthy, like they haven't cheated or lied or anything like that, you have this inner alarm going off saying, I don't know what it is about them. I can't put my finger on it, but for me, it's still a no. All right, that's what that can look like. All right. So again, making decisions that feel right, not just familiar, not I've known them for X amount of years, so therefore I have to deal with, or my family went to this here church, so I have to go and I have to deal with all of the nonsense in it. All right, all of the nonsense in it, because this is where my parents went, this is where my grandparents went, so I'm expected, so I got to sit here and deal with people and their nonsense. All right. So we're not just sitting somewhere just because it's familiar. We're not sitting in situations because it's familiar, as in the situation is pretty abusive, or toxic, but that's what we're used to. So we sit in it. We're not sitting in those things. We're not sitting around people because we know them a long time, because we didn't have the strength, or we were in the mental trap. I've known them for X amount of years, so therefore I have to remain their friend. I have to sit here because they're family. You're like in the Queen of Swords energy, you don't care. You're like, know what? It's enough. It's enough. I'm no longer going to be in a Nine of Pentacles. Way back then, part of that being in that stable, grounded energy was releasing the mental trap. So we're not going to do anything to put us back there. We don't care if you're related. We don't care if it's familiar. We don't care what it is. All right. Not doing it. All right. You're making aligned choices, and you don't care who they are. You don't care the situation. All right. All right. All right. So we move on. Dun, 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 dun. To our last and final beautiful card, the Empress. All right. Spirit with this spread really told a story, a progression, right? So I love how we leave off. At the end of this progression, we end with the Pentacle of Femininity and growth. And her card really symbolizes growth because she's fruitful, she's fertile. All right, that's why most tarot decks will show her. She's usually always pregnant because she's fruitful. So it depends on what you're asking. Obviously, if you're talking about finances, which you'll get you should get a lot of pentacle cards or things that tell a story that way. But get her, she's nurturing, but she bears fruit. She's abundance, right? That's why she's pregnant, because she's fertile, she's fruitful, she's abundant, and usually she has a sickle or something else in her hand. Because a sickle is used to to harvest because she's fruitful. All right. So she could signify that. That's why, again, we don't just say this is a man, this is a woman, because we have men who are what? Abundant, fruitful, right? Even nurturing, right? So anyway, we progress to the Empress. Oh, what a beautiful thing, right? So we arrive here. This is not just an ending. Again, it's an arrival. The Empress is fullness, right? Nice full round belly. Abundance, creation, all right? All right? She's the fluff that I got, because I never got back to flatness after I had mine. Even when it's so funny. I know I'm going to get off here. It was so funny. Even when I was a lot bigger, I always had a flat tummy, but boy, one child, roundness. It's okay though. It's all right. The world's got you tricked, ladies. World's got you tricked, all right? Enjoy the fluff. I enjoy mine. I do. I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to hate it. I don't care. It's mine. Anyway, I'll get back on this. I know. All right. Enjoy the fluff, girls. Enjoy it. That's what Spanx are for. And for those who don't know what Spanx is, that's, good old Lycra. Good old girdle on that. Anyway, I'm sorry. Let me stop. Anyway, back to it. The Empress is fullness, nurturing, abundance, fruitfulness, creation, right? For those when you're, doing readings and you want to know about creation or life or babies, you get the Empress. That's a very good one. All right, creation, because that's what she's talking. She'll literally be talking about creation. But anyway, it's a version of you that's no longer pouring from empty. You remember how we started from the Page of Wands? It was that spark. You had it buried, or because you had so many things you were juggling. What you wanted was not important, or it just couldn't be important because of what you were juggling. All right, and then we moved on from that page, that very baby, very young or immature steps, very young steps of that creative spark returning, whatever it was you found it. You moved right on to the Queen of Wands. Then you came more discerning with the Queen of Swords, right? You're no longer pouring from empty. You're overflowing. You're fruitful. That's why she's usually shown with a sickle. I don't know if this deck showed her with a sickle. With a sickle, all right, where because she's fruitful. You have to harvest. All right, you're overflowing. Bible verse, my cup runneth over. She's running over. She's abundant. All right. All right, and so we pair that with Oshun, mother's milk. Oshun of mother's milk, nurturing, harvest, prosperity. Those two cards pair very well with one another because they're really tapping on the same thing. Because I'm looking for that. Why did I put that back over there? Because their meanings are very similar. It's harvest. They're both harvest. It's like Spirit just gave you up to like a I connect more with Christianity because I grew up Christianity. And again, hoodoo practices is rooted in the Christian church, all right? In not Christian church, but in the black church, in the older styles, all right? We're still, unbeknownst to a lot of them, or maybe they just don't want to admit it, are still doing a lot of hoodoo practice naturally because a lot of what they do is rooted in that. But anyway, so that's why I'll refer to it often because that's what I know. It's not saying you need to attach the same meaning or feel the same way. No. All right. I'm not going to tell you what to feel. I'm not going to tell you how to take it either. I mean, you take things how you take. Your feelings are valid here, right? You take things how you take them. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not, you better believe this way. No. All right. You don't have to agree with me at all. And that's your right. Anyway, so Oshun of mother's milk, nurturing, harvest, prosperity. It's like a double portion because you got the Empress who literally means those things. And then Oshun of mother's milk popped out. And that card is so pretty. You saw it in the beginning. Oshun is holding a baby. She's holding a baby. All right, nurturing, harvest, prosperity, meaning the same thing. It's like Spirit wanted to double down on that, right? That's where you arrive. You started out with the Eight of Swords, feeling that mental trap, no way out. you don't matter. There's no way out. You're juggling, 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 juggling. And you went from Nine of Pentacles, very stable in every area of your life. And you arrived, last but not least, to the Empress. But then you got Oshun of Mother's Milk, which is doubling down on that. Nurturing, harvest, prosperity, abundance, fruitfulness, right? So Spirit is saying this is a season of receiving. A season I get happy for everyone, right? For myself, yes, but for everyone else. So a spirit of receiving, right? A season where you've nurtured, because each card, we know the Empress is nurturing. Oshun is nurturing. She's literally holding a baby, nurturing it, right? A season of receiving, a season where what you have nurtured, because you've been in that, you had that creative spark, no matter what that looks like. Business is creative. All right, what you've held, what you've poured into, what you've been working on, it's now returning to you. It's bringing forth fruit, right? All right, there is softness here. There is abundance here, all right? There is a deep sense of being supported. That's a big one. Supported emotionally. What you feel matters, right? Spiritually and even physically for some of you, all right? You're no longer in survival mode. You are in receiving mode, right? You get to actually live, not survive, all right? So this can feel like stepping into a nurturing, abundant phase of life, experiencing emotional, spiritual, or even physical fulfillment, divine connections, receiving the results of your growth, right? Whatever you put into it with that creative spark, that creative energy, even if the creative spark or energy was just working on you, working on your health and whatever else, you know what I mean? Whatever that looks like for you. All right, feeling full, supported, and aligned, rooted and rising. It's a beautiful place, all right? That, ends our tarot spread, all right? But let's pull a card and let's close the message. Let's use this deck today. Let's close it with this deck, all right? Here you go, close. Let's do that. All right, anyway, so let's close it with this deck. Looks like our incense are done burning. And let's see what we can close it with today. And I will just shuffle, stack, and pull if it doesn't come out right away. Sometimes it does. So let's give us something spiritual. Let us close the message out today from this deck. What do we have to speak with today? Rooted and rising family. Who's in Empress energy or headed straight to Empress energy. These cards are bigger, so I can't shuffle them like the standard way because they are, really big. I love it. Fell out the sickle, which I think is fitting because, again, the Empress, excuse me, again, the Empress is often shown with the sickle, right? It's a harvesting tool. Oshun of Mother's Milk and the Empress are about harvest and prosperity and fruitfulness. And then Spirit has to close the message with the sickle. All right, so I'll read their explanation so you can get a very thorough explanation of what this deck is using the sickle for. But those, again, who are seasoned in farming and things like that, and in growing in their own gardens and stuff like that, you all are very familiar what you need the sickle for, right? So sickle, focus, regrowth, letting go, which you let go of the mental trap, the Eight of Swords, all right, and came on down to the Nine of Pentacles and Independence. That spark returned, and with the Page of Wands, and then you had the Queen of Wands, where you were fully in your power, in yourself. Queen of Swords, you were discerning. You just moved through it all, right? With the various oracle decks, you made aligned choices, moved on into ending everything with the Empress energy. So you have the focus, which you did, on your creative energy, because that's why you're fruitful. All right, regrowth. And you did. You've done all those things, and now you're abundant, letting go. You let go of the mental trap, right? But this is, each deck usually comes with their own guidebook, and they like to tell you. Sometimes they like to explain the meaning of the cards, especially when you're using an oracle deck, and even the tarot one. When you get a tarot deck, even if they are using the traditional suits, and I'm only speaking for those who aren't familiar, we know the ones who are seasoned, this is no new news for you. But even if they use the same standard suits, a lot of times they will have explanations of the card meanings. And then sometimes you'll find from deck to deck, one explanation, although they mean essentially the same thing, sometimes it resonates better with you in your understanding. It's like teachers, some teachers have a very nurturing, very warm style, and that resonates more with their students. And then some teachers are very direct. I want it done this way, in bulleted pointed, in, detailed in a very direct way, a very Queen of Swords, King of Swords way, right? And that doesn't work for others, but it works very well for some. It's kind of like that. So you'll find that sometimes when you read their description on what that card means, even though it's the standard card, may hit you better than the other ones. And I'm just looking at the contents to tell me what page this is on. I tried to see if I could just flip to it, but of course, because I want to go quick, it's like, no, I will not let you find me. I'll let you see, because some people don't let you see it. And I always like to show you, because some people, you watch them and they don't show you. You're like, what deck is that? Because a lot of times, that's the prettiest deck. I want to know what deck it is. And they never tell you in their description. But anyway, so their meaning is the sickle is a gardening tool used for harvesting, right? And reaping, reaping your harvest. Love it. Though it is closely associated with, the death, he holds a sickle, that death. But anyway, in art, death is often seen holding this tool, a symbol of taking a life that is finished. But the sickle helps you to clear away the dead matter and control the overgrowth, right? Allowing for new growth to take place, unhindered. So it allows you to clear away the old, and so the new can come forward, which you already did from the Eight of Swords, moving on down to the Empress. All right, that clearing, that discerning Queen of Swords energy, which is a sword, usually she cuts through, has allowed the regrowth, the Empress energy to come through and you to actually, now harvest. All right. But anyway, new growth to take place unhindered. Clearing and cutting away outdated or unneeded material leaves space for new life, new beginnings. It doesn't cut life short. Instead, it refocuses available resources so that life can continue rooted and rising. The sickle card reminds you to cut away what drains your energy, which you did based on this reading, or you're in the process of doing, right? You were in that Eight of Swords that was draining your energy, and you progress on to the Empress, where you are now fruitful. But you also went through a very standing in your power, which is boldness and confidence about who you are, not shrinking. And then Queen of Swords followed, which means you're very discerning, so you're doing that. The sickle card reminds you to cut away what drains your energy or no longer serves you, so focused growth can take place. I love that this will end with a reflection in this particular guidebook in this deck. So you can even answer yourself, and I love to journal. So for those who are journalers like me, what parts of your life need to be cut back or cut out completely to help you grow, rooted and rising? If you are in the process of doing that, that gives you something to reflect on, all right? All right, well, this is a wonderful message for Mother's Day, for our feminine energy. And I'm not speaking of male versus female, but it's beautiful, especially from where you started to where you're going. Spirit is just assuring you, you are not stuck, all right? There is hope, right? And progress headed your way. And you're going to use those swords around you to cut the bandages off so you are no longer trapped in the mind. All right. As always, rooted and rising family, stay rooted, stay rising and aligned with all the divine gifts ahead.